Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 36. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's Ravens week. It feels like we should be a little bit more excited here at this point. Big game coming up on Sunday at M&T Bank Stadium against the Ravens. Has it hit you yet that it's Steelers-Ravens week yet?
Probably more so on Friday or right before kickoff, honestly. It's weird they have not flexed this game. I thought for sure they would flex this game to a primetime because it feels like this game is worthy of primetime viewing.
Well, I think they need a couple weeks' notice before they do that. And B, why would CBS let this one go?
That's true.
If they had the say so on kind of retaining these, which is I think part of the rules, especially this early in the season here, I think CBS would be absolutely foolish because a lot of people say they should have flexed that game last week or against the Titans, but CBS was also smart to hold on to that one. I think the ratings were through the roof as expected. I think regardless of what happens, the game's staying put now on CBS at this point. I would expect the ratings for Steelers-Ravens this Sunday to be, it'll probably be the most viewed game possibly this season here. So, look, I love the early games.
We've been treated to a lot of early games.
Absolutely, they come on 10 o'clock out here in Las Vegas, so we're able to obviously get recapped and the chart set up and a good walkthrough of the initial TV tape and all before even kind of the Sunday night games come on there. So it's not hurting my feelings at all for the Steelers to have so many 1 o'clock games so far this season.
And speaking of games being flexed, we should mention it's a good time to segue. The NFL has flexed one Steelers game, the Week 10 matchup versus the Cincinnati Bengals. That game is now flexed from 1 p.m. to 4:25. Did you say that was Masters related?
It sounds like it. I mean, the draw anyway for a game between Bengals and Steelers. Look, the Steelers are involved. It's going to be a draw anyway. But the way the Bengals are playing this season and all like that, not big of a draw. And it just sounds like the NFL happy to have more later games on that Sunday than earlier games because of the Masters and all like that. So that sounds like that played a big role. In that game getting flexed to a later time.
Right, so your happiness of those 1 o'clock games is about to go away because after Baltimore Sunday, it's 4:25 against Dallas and then 4:25 with the Bengals, and then towards the end of the year, a whole bunch of primetime games. But just as a scheduling note for Steelers fans, Week 10 versus Cincinnati at Heinz Field has now been moved from 1 to 4:25. All right, Dave, let's talk about, I would hesitate to call it news. I would call it a collective freakout by Steelers Nation last night. And we are recording this Wednesday morning right before 11 a.m. My time. So if anything were to change, we may not be able to address it. But Cam Sutton, I just want to say Cam Sutton and throw it to you because I don't even know how to frame this as a question that would be intelligent and not.
I'm just going to give you a smart-ass answer, so just go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, here's what happened was Cam Sutton posted some stuff on Instagram. There was a peace sign. It was just some cryptic stuff. Hard to know what he was talking about. And somehow that got interpreted as Cam Sutton's getting traded or whatever the case is. And it just kind of devolved from there. So let me just say I don't have any expectation Cam Sutton's going to get traded. I don't think Steeler fans should be freaking out, but it's just kind of this hive mentality of one guy starts talking about it. Now the whole world feels like they're talking about it. So what's your reaction here, Dave?
Yeah, not really much of anything. Now, unfortunately, we have to sometimes you end up having to chase ghosts. In nowadays in today's social media, what turns out to maybe you think is one thing ends up being a guy just tweeting out rap lyrics or what have you. Just from the the moment kind of this stuff that I came across this on Instagram and all. You try to look at this realistically and think, all right, why would the Steelers be willing to trade away cheap, experienced, smart depth? I realize the team could be in the market for an inside linebacker. If they did anything in dealing any kind of deals right now at this point, you would think it would be because they would be wanting to acquire an inside linebacker of some sorts there. But when you do look at that and you think about, well, it seems counterproductive to trade for a linebacker and then in the process trade away a nice piece of depth here, in Cameron Sutton. And yeah, it's final year of his contract, yada yada. But it seems like it would be a very, very uncharacteristic move for Kevin Colbert unless he got something back in return that was starting capable inside linebacker, a cheap one, and then one maybe that had multiple years left remaining on his contract. That would be the only way I think that you could potentially frame this as potentially happening. Other than that, it just seems like, I think you phrased it best, just a kind of a fan freak out just because being right around the trade deadline here.
Right, and to be clear, there's been no report or even hint from any sort of media type that's reported on any notion of a move, so he was probably just tweeting and Instagramming about something else, subtweeting about some dude that left a comment on his page or a woman. Who knows what the story is, but I don't think Cam Sutton's going anywhere. This team is so close to win a Super Bowl. They got a great roster. They're not going to sell and say, let's make our roster worse. And so just one of those quirks of Steelers Nations, I think, came out last night.
Yeah, Jerry Dulac tweeted not long ago, for those who keep asking, all I can tell you is Cam Sutton is at the Steelers facility today and attending meetings. If he knew he was being traded at this point, do you think they would have him in meetings right now, Alex?
Right. So I believe it's much ado about nothing, but it certainly put Steelers fans in a tizzy last night. And I don't know, you guys are voluntarily raising your blood pressure when the games alone should be enough to do that. So I am not worried about it, and I think Cam Sutton will finish the season as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I don't know. Juju last night posted a shot of LA champs.
Going to the Rams.
It's kind of cryptic, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look, I think this is an overreaction here. Personally, I keep getting asked about this. I'll be surprised if they make a move at this point, Alex. I mean, we've talked about really the two most likely targets, I think, and really I have one kind of elevated a little bit more than that. That would be Jared Davis of the Lions, which it seems like the Lions are even in buy mode right now. Didn't they just trade for some pass rusher from the Cowboys right now? So
Everson Griffin, yes.
Right. So why would they do something like that and then turn around and let a linebacker go out the backside there? So even that kind of seems kind of far-fetched that maybe they would trade away like a former first round pick in Davis, even though he's in the final year of his deal. And really the only other one I see as a legitimate kind of candidate here based on contracts and all would be Avery Williamson with the Jets. And I'm kind of lukewarm on him overall. And once again, we're talking about a guy that would come in and potentially be a 1 year or really a half a season rental at this point. And how long would it take him to get up to speed and learn the defense? If it was more towards the start of the season, like we saw last year with what Vanette and Minka, obviously. It would come off as a lot more plausible. Now, look, Kevin Colbert, going against the grain and doing what he did last year with Minka and what he gave up. You could throw a lot of maybe the history and stuff maybe out the window there, but you start adding all these pieces up and you look at the team and you look at a guy like Cameron Sutton and you look at the way Robert Spillane played this past week and how Vince Williams played and how Ulysses Gilbert III was used, yada, yada. I think I've said it. I'll be surprised if they make a move here, Alex.
I'm with you. I'm not expecting much. Obviously, the NFL trade deadline isn't as crazy as other leagues either, so just the number of trades, the volume of trades are a lot smaller, and not that it means a whole lot to present day, but the history of the Steelers trading away players during the season is very, very small. There was Josh Dobbs last year, but that was a third stringer with just an offer you couldn't refuse to get a fifth-round pick, and of course he's found his way back to Pittsburgh, and I believe prior to Dobbs, the last Steelers player to be traded after the season began was Tim Worley in 1993 to Chicago. So the history there just generally says the Steelers are in buy mode as opposed to sell mode.
Yeah, once again, I mean, look, we saw Dobbs get dealt and all like that, but I mean, that you want to talk about a real fringe kind of piece, when that happened, it would be, look. If they dealt a guy like Cameron Sutton right now, I mean, it would be kind of monumental when you look back at Kevin Colbert history and deals. It wouldn't be up there obviously as big of a deal as the Minkah Fitzpatrick thing was, but it would be a pretty substantial move, I think, to trade away depth like that.
It would be a dumb move unless they got some sort of amazing haul back that could help you win now, some sort of player. So, yeah, again, much ado about nothing is my interpretation of the situation. So let's move off of that and not give it any additional oxygen. Also, before we get into Mike Tomlin's Tuesday presser, I do want to let you guys know we have our one of our favorite guests to have on the show, John Eisenberg, who covers the Ravens columnist, author of The League and The Streak. Be sure to follow him at B More Eisenberg. He'll join us to talk about the Ravens and preview what's going on in Baltimore. And Dave, also, I picked up The League a couple weeks ago. I think it is for sure a great book, not only about Art Rooney and the history of his involvement in the early days of football, but Burt Bell and his involvement too. He, of course, had a pretty close relationship with the Steelers and Mr. Rooney, and just some really fantastic stories about the early days of football. So if you're a football junkie like I am, love the history stuff, that is a book certainly worthy of being picked up.
Absolutely. And John always never bats an eye when we ask him to come on. Always gets back to us right away via email, carves out a good 30 minutes for us every time we have him on. He likes hearing from Steelers fans too. He says he sees them, he hears from them. I think just an overall great experience for him. So make sure you reach out to him again at B More Eisenberg. After you hear the interview later on in the show, which is another good one with him.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, let's transition to the Mike Tomlin Tuesday presser, and we'll begin things with the injury report and some generally positive news on that front, I would say. Tomlin saying that Mike Hilton and Derek Watt, both guys who missed Sunday's game over Tennessee, will be practicing this week. Not exactly for sure on their availability for playing in Sunday's game versus the Ravens, but both trending in the right direction. So that's some obviously positive news.
Absolutely it is. And, he says they will assess their health and performance throughout the course of the week in typical Mike Tomlin standard, as he would say there. But the fact that he mentioned them and scheduled to resume practicing, obviously a good sign. We'll keep our fingers crossed, and you hate to, as I've learned over the years, you hate to make hard, fast, decisive injury decisions, if you will, based on what Mike Tomlin says on a Wednesday or on a Tuesday, or what Mike Tomlin has to say immediately after the game, because he didn't give us anything. Excuse me. He didn't really give us anything coming out of the game against the Titans. And lo and behold, he's talking about Chris Wormley had a knee that's being evaluated. That's getting an MRI. He doesn't know the availability of him. Jordan Dangerfield had a quad injury during the game that might limit him during the early portions of the week. One positive note there, he was asked later in the press conference about Robert Spillane and his shoulder. Spillane obviously came back in that game, didn't seem any worse for wear there, but Mike Tomlin says there might be some, do you say residual?
This is my favorite Tomlin quote. He said some residue.
Some residue,
on that
yeah.
shoulder.
Yeah, he got some Derrick Henry residue on him.
Explains to everybody like, it ain't residue, dude. My shoulder hurts.
Yeah, the hell with residue. That MF hurts there. Mike Tomlin, look, it was a day of Tomlinisms coming out of that Tuesday press conference, and I know some people celebrate that. I don't really, because if we're talking about Tomlinisms, we're not really talking about really in any hard, fast info overall. But injury speaking, it doesn't sound too terribly bad. Once again, I would expect for a Wednesday injury report later on today when we write it up, probably 8 or 9 guys are going to be on it. I would suspect Ben will be on it. Probably, I don't know, Tuitt,
Juju, Deontay.
possibly, maybe Deontay, and a handful of these other guys also on it. So it might be quite lengthy as usual to start the week, but as the week goes on, as we get into Friday, hopefully that thing whittles down to maybe 1 or 2 questionable players, and maybe that's it. So we'll obviously keep that updated on SteelersDepot.com throughout the afternoons.
And exiting the game, it only feels like Wormley is the injury to watch, and with that MRI and the knee injury, that may mean that Henry Mondeau may get another week on the roster. So we'll see what happens there. All right,
I wish he, along those lines too, I wish he would have been asked about what went into the decision to have Henry Mondeau active and to sit Isaiah Buggs down. Unfortunately, nobody asked such a question.
Yeah, I think it was, and train going by, I apologize for that standard quote of the podcast. I think it was Mondeau's versatility, his ability to at least play on multiple special teams units. So I think it was honestly kind of a Derek Watt substitute. It's the reason why Mondeau got elevated.
All right, so what happens if Derek Watt's back this week,
Well, let's see what happens with Wormley. And then that still may open the door for Mondeau for at least another week. But we'll keep you posted on that. Mike Tomlin, did talk about Spillane and say he was happy with the performance of both him and UG3 and the job that they did. He said, quote, "And I think it's reasonable to expect Spillane to get better with each outing because he is a hardworking young man with physical reps and muscle memory. Should come more consistent performance," and so those are all encouraging and exciting things to discuss. And Steelers players and teammates have definitely praised the job Spillane did and taking on Derrick Henry on the goal line. I think Mike Pursuta had the quote from Cam Hayward saying they moved Spillane from back of the plane to first class when you have a moment like that. So earning the respect of his teammates is Robert Spillane.
Absolutely. And look, the guy that gets kind of lost in the shuffle here, and I don't want to take anything away from the game that Spillane had, but Vince Williams had a nice game too, and it was good to see Mike Tomlin asked about him yesterday and the response that Mike Tomlin gave.
Yeah, if you can pull that quote up, because I don't have it offhand right now, but Vince played great. 10 tackles to lead the team, a sack. He's just been a thumper, a downhill guy, and I have an article this morning on Steelers Depot that shows Vince and other Steelers as well as even plays they didn't make on the stat sheet, but they were filling a gap to spill the run to help a teammate make a play or something like that. So just that downhill mentality was really required to minimize and contain Derrick Henry, and having guys like Vince Williams and Spillane, I think, are really well equipped for that style of football.
He says, Vince is really consistent. I don't know that he's an all. I don't know that he's all around better. I think he's getting more opportunities this year. He was part of a 3-man rotation a year ago, if you remember, with he and Devin Bush and Mark Barron, and really he's not part of a rotation this year. And Mike Tomlin, no lies detected there. Last season, if you go back to when Vince Williams was effectively the third fiddle behind Bush and Mark Barron, it resulted in him playing 396 total defensive snaps in the 14 games he dressed for. This season, with Barron obviously no longer on the team and with Bush now lost to injury, Vince Williams has already logged 276 total defensive snaps. So a couple more games and he'll be right where the amount that he played last year. He's registered a team-high 32 tackles through 6 games played, and really 12 tackles for loss on the season, and that ties him with TJ Watt. Him and TJ Watt with 12 are tied for the NFL lead in that statistical category entering Week 8. Who saw that one coming?
So they're both tied at number 1. There's no one else with 12. It's just those two guys. Wow. I mean, that's crazy. It just speaks to the level of splash plays, of aggressiveness, and how smart these guys are. Because as much as we talk about the physicality and the big hits and all that, both TJ Watt and Vince Williams are 2 incredibly intelligent players that read and diagnose very quickly, and that allows them to make those plays in the backfield.
Right.
I have the clip of comparing TJ Watt, who said he watched older brother JJ against the Titans the week before, and them using the same exact move to beat Titans right tackle Dennis Kelly to drop Derrick Henry in the backfield for a loss. And so just the little things like that, the little extra work ethic things, when you combine that with really big talent, you get guys like TJ Watt.
Absolutely.
One interesting comment Mike Tomlin had, though, was on the A.J. Brown 73-yard touchdown, which we know was kind of the start of the turning point in that game that allowed Tennessee to jump back into that game. And Tomlin said he took a large chunk of the blame for that one, saying, quote, "We really had our attention on the runner, as you know," of course referring to Derrick Henry. Tomlin goes on to say, "And largely we were able to minimize his impact on the game. Didn't like the big play we gave up. I absorbed some of the responsibility for that initially when we were preparing for the game. Brown was not an active guy. Maybe we didn't give him enough attention and prep." And so Brown had been battling a knee injury, did not practice, I believe, on Thursday. I think he was DNP, but was listed full for Friday. And so Tomlin saying maybe they should have paid a little bit more attention to Brown, who went off for a $150 and a touchdown against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know how much I buy of that not being totally ready for him. And they had to know there was a chance of him coming off, right?
I mean, you would think so. I mean, maybe just during the early parts of the week in terms of their game prep, they didn't have as good a feeling he was going to play. I don't know specifically how Tomlin's referring to not enough attention.
Yeah, well, that big play obviously was a huge turning point in that game, and really, as we talked the other day, recapping the game, that one play, when it happened and how it happened, and obviously being more than a triple explosive play there, instantly put Tennessee right back in that game.
Mm-hmm. And regardless of whether or not they prep for Brown, it doesn't matter. Minka's got to make that tackle. Vince has got to be able to find that football and break it up. A tough play for both, sure, but regardless of who the face was, Tomlin always says these are nameless great faces. You just got to make that play.
Right.
So put it on the players as well. Anything else Tomlin said at his presser that stuck out to you, Dave?
Yeah, not overall. I don't think so, Alex.
Yeah, he was asked how to keep Lamar Jackson in check, and he says he wished he had a good answer for that. So we'll see how they approach Lamar Jackson. Obviously, no Devin Bush will make that job a little bit tougher to do. We'll kind of see that cat and mouse game of trying to contain this guy because it is far from easy to accomplish that.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, if you go back to last year's Week 3 game, and we talked a little bit, with John Eisenberg later in this show about how he would go about planning to defend against Lamar Jackson. They did a good job in that game, Week 5. And probably statistically, the worst game of Lamar Jackson's career, top to bottom, when you marry the tape to the statistics there. So we'll see if they can do it again. But obviously it's not going to be an easy chore.
Right, for sure. Some other Steelers housekeeping, just a real minor note. This is just becoming kind of the constant every week. The Steelers protected 4 players on their practice squad. That's outside linebacker Jay Elliott, wide receiver Deon Cain, running back Trey Edmonds, and running back Wendell Smallwood. And so I think, as you noted, Dave, all 4 guys have been protected at least twice this season, and I believe that's the same list as last week, if I'm not mistaken. So not a lot of news there, to be honest with you.
Right. No huge surprises on that. I think the only thing, with Trey Edmonds now, it would have to be him really tearing up his practice squad contract at this point. If he was to go to the 53-man roster, he's already been elevated twice. You can only have 2 elevations in that. So if he was the one that would be brought up again, it would probably be Derek Watt related. If that happened, they didn't play him a whole heck of a lot, even though he was brought up this past week. So
how many snaps did he play? He didn't do much.
No, not much. Not much on special teams, I don't think either. Not as much as what I thought. He an elevated guy, especially in with his kind of background on special teams. That's why it was kind of a head scratcher when you go back through that tape and you start watching how much Henry Mondeau was on the field for, right? Edmonds, let me see here.
Edmonds did not play a single special team snap. He only had 1 snap total that was on offense.
Right, that's what has stuck out to me. 1 snap total offensively and 0 special team snaps. I wouldn't have bet that would have happened.
And was that offensive snap? That was probably a kneel down, I'm guessing.
I don't know how to see what Tom has on that.
Yeah, because Minka has 1. I can't think of Edmonds playing unless it was in a goal line situation, but I don't think he was out there because I used Mondeau as the fullback on the Snell touchdown. So I'm betting that came on the kneel down when Edmonds was out there.
What's his number? 33, right?
33.
Yeah. Let me look real quick here on sorting this.
Jalen Samuels playing 9 snaps at running back, although some of that came at receiver and some sort of quasi-fullback type stuff.
One kneel down.
Yep. All right, so there you go. So maybe curious decision, especially with Mondo coming up, because obviously they planned on playing Mondo on basically all 4 phases, but maybe that was just extra insurance to have Trey Edmonds called up.
All right. Anybody else of those 4? I mean, Kane, there would really be no reason, I don't think, to elevate Kane this week. Mondo's already on the roster, so you don't have to worry about that one. We would think that it would potentially be Edmonds or nobody, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they could bring Elliott up again, but unless some sort of injury status were to change dramatically, if Wormley's not available, Mondo's already up, so no one to call up that way. So what about Stefan Wisniewski? Is he going to come back this week? I feel like he's going to come back this week.
That's another thing I put on Twitter after the press conference yesterday. Nobody asked about Stefan Wisniewski. I mean, he's been practicing now for...
Is this his final week to be activated?
This starts number 3, doesn't it?
So by the end of this week, he's got to be activated.
There is a 20. I would think by next Wednesday, right?
Is it okay? Next Wednesday. I'm a little hazy on the timeline, but soon, like he's coming up because he's been activated for a couple weeks now, and you have a 3-week, 21-day window to either get activated or you go on IR for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the date when that happened here. Hold on a minute here, and I'll find that for you exactly when that happened.
And assuming if and when the time comes, Duran Gray probably gets a short end of the stick, or Hassenauer. I guess one of those two probably goes down, but I think Gray is more likely. Stefan
Wisniewski returned to practice on the 21st, and that opened up his 21-day window. So it'll be 2 weeks. Oh, okay. 2 weeks today. So they have until but by I think the end of next Tuesday, whenever the 21-day window. But 2 full weeks of practice are in after this week, or already. You would think he's close, right? And I mean, if he's ready, he's ready. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know exactly how close he is. Obviously, we don't get any practice report on his status. I assume he's been practicing fully. I didn't realize there were 2 weeks left, so there is a little bit more time than what I had thought.
Well, I mean, there's actually, I mean, today is the 28th, and he got started on the 14th. So,
he got started on the 14th.
Right, on the 14th.
It's the 21st.
No, 14th, 21-day window.
Oh, okay. All right, so we are coming up on a week. Yeah, so I don't know. My guess is he'll be activated on Saturday.
That's mine as well too. They took us all that to get to that.
It's that minutia. All right. Anyway, so anything else from Tomlin, Dave, or do you want to move on here?
Yeah. Let's move on here.
All right. Let's talk to our buddy John Eisenberg and get his take on Baltimore, and then after that, we'll come back and talk about some of the all 22 of the Steelers-Titans games. So be sure to follow John Eisenberg, who covers the Ravens, author of The League, The Streak, and a couple other books. Follow him on Twitter at @BMoreEisenberg. Let's talk to John and get his take on the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday, and everybody knows what that means. We have an opposing beat writer, a beat writer. I wouldn't call John Eisenberg opposing. I would call him just a beat writer that covers the opposing team. Maybe that's the better way to put it here on this Wednesday. But you should already know who I'm talking about when I mention the name John Eisenberg. Probably, I know probably about it. He has been a guest more times on this show than anybody else. Everybody looks forward to when we have him on. He is an author, has many great books already written out that you can find on Amazon. One that's selling real well right now. The League is an absolutely great book that I've read. I know Alex has read it as well too. We'll give him a chance to talk about that a little bit later during this interview. I'm of course talking about John Eisenberg. You can follow John on Twitter at @BMoreEisenberg. He of course a longtime columnist of the Baltimore Ravens, writes for the site at BaltimoreRavens.com. So with that, happy Wednesday, John. Welcome back to the Terrible Podcast.
Well, that's a nice introduction. I appreciate it, and I love coming on with you guys, and I love hearing from your listeners too, and I do hear. So that's a great thing.
Hey, that's good. We always pride ourselves with having a very knowledgeable and up to date listenership.
Yes.
And look, hopefully they treat you well. I see most of them that come across there, and they like good info, and they know that you provide it. And I know every time that you're on, they're excited to have you. So with that, here we are already, week 8 of the NFL season, a big week, first of 2 regular season meetings as usual between the Steelers and the Ravens happening on Sunday in Baltimore. CBS is covering it. 6-0 versus 5-1. Let's start this way, John. What is your perception, in covering the Ravens of where they're at right now versus where you expected them to be? And what about the Steelers? Where did you see the Steelers potentially being at this point in the season, and kind of what's your thoughts on them? Kind of 30,000-foot question on both of them.
Well, the Steelers. I'll start with the Steelers. They, 8-8 last year, 6 games behind the Ravens, and of course no Ben for most of the year, and so that 6-game margin looks like something that it's going to take years to make up, but. I certainly, having observed this rivalry for many years, I feel the Steelers, are good franchise that knows how to put winning teams on the field. I think an excellent head coach, and I expected him with Ben back to be a lot better this year. Whether they'd be the last undefeated team and number 1 in some power rankings and all that, I don't know that I expected that. I don't know if the fans even expected that, but. It looks like a good team to me. I watched the Tennessee game, and I felt like, very impressive on many fronts. Certainly just took command of the game on the road, which was impressive with that opening drive, 10 minutes. I mean, that just right there just showed you who's in charge of that game. And I built up a lead, and Tennessee's a good team and almost came back and won it, but I did feel like the Steelers deserved to win that game, and, it's a strong defense. You got Ben under center, a lot of third downs. It just seems like converting third downs in his sleep. It's a major, major challenge, I think, for the Ravens. And the Ravens are coming into this game in an interesting place. They're coming off a bye. Of course, the schedule's been all jumbled around because of the virus, and so that probably helps the Ravens a little bit. It wasn't originally going to be the case, but they're coming off their bye, facing Pittsburgh. And they're in an interesting place. They're 5-1. It's a good start. They haven't always looked great doing it, and it's been kind of weird because, this was a team that was built around Lamar Jackson in the offense last year. Record-setting numbers, great stuff, just incredible in many respects. And this year, the offense has had some hiccups. They're not running the ball as consistently or as well. They no longer have Marshall Yonda. Everyone knew it was going to be a big subtraction when he retired. It's really been big, and actually inevitable. I think you don't just possible Hall of Famer there, and I think you don't just replace him without missing something. So they're struggling a little bit in the running game, struggling a little bit in pass protection. I guarantee the Steelers will be bringing the heat, and struggling a little bit in the passing game, ranked near the bottom of the league, but nonetheless, they're winning, and they do have playmakers, and they're one of the highest scoring teams in the league. So it's kind of weird to watch this team now. The first 5 or 6 games, the defense is markedly improved from a year ago. They had one bad game that I'm sure you all saw against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Really didn't show up that night. They've got a lot of new pieces and a strong secondary. They have had some injuries. And, they've added Yannick Ngakoue here since they last played a game. Very strong pass rusher. I think he's going to help them. And so I think you're going to see the Ravens heading in the right direction here. So it just shapes up as an outstanding collision of 2 good teams.
We obviously had you on prior to the start of the season to preview the Ravens, and now here we are, week 8 already of the season. Based on what your perception and whether it be offense, defense, or what have you, what is the most unexpected element of this Ravens team as we sit here now, based on maybe what your perception was, prior to the start of the season?
Unexpected element. Well, the unexpected element this season is that they're not running the ball as well. I mean, that would be the negative unexpected element. They went and got J.K. Dobbins in the draft, and had Mark Ingram back and Gus Edwards back and Lamar back, and this is set the all-time NFL record for team rushing yards in a season last year. And you figure, well, they may not do that again, but they're still going to be really strong. And they're still high in the rankings, but it has not been the same. Teams are playing Lamar differently. I'm sure the Steelers have seen the tape and will do it. They're spreading the field to sort of keep him from getting to the edges. He's not getting to the edges nearly as easily. Almost never is he getting to the edges now. They spread in the field. A lot of defenders, the best way to explain is they're not committing. They realize, these defensive coordinators realize, if you tell your defenders to go get Lamar, he just jukes around them. So they sort of rope-a-dope him in a way and let him come to them. Don't commit. Give him a small gain and tackle him. And that's been working. But having said that, Lamar is adjusting on his own and is trying to, he's had in the last 2 games, long touchdown runs up the middle of the field on scrambles. So he's still an extremely dangerous player. But the biggest surprise is, generally the running game is not quite as effective as it was a year ago.
And before I turn it over to Alex for a handful of questions here, obviously Dez Bryant, there's been a little bit of speculation about what may or may not happen with him associated with the Ravens here, mid-season and on. They brought him in, got him on the practice squad. It sounds like it doesn't sound like they're going to have him ready by the weekend. At least I wouldn't think they would have him ready by the weekend. We'll obviously see here, but what do you make of that move to bring a veteran guy that's been obviously out of football for a little bit now back in and specifically on the practice squad? Does that speak volumes about what they think about the wide receiver core right now?
To a degree, it does. Not the whole core so much as they need another target here. Is the Lamar is definitely dealing with that. Half of his targets and completions are to Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. And so that's great. He has great connection with those guys. Those guys are having good years. But several defensive, at the end of games in the locker room after games, several opposing defenses have said, we kind of know what's coming here. And so they've gotten a little predictable and they need another target. They were hoping it would be Miles Boykin, who's a receiver that everybody likes. I know you guys like him.
Right, we liked him,
and
yeah.
He's a big-bodied guy, smart, runs good patterns, everything. But he and Lamar are not connecting that well, and it's just not happening. That's not to say it won't happen, but and he blocks well. You have to block well if you're a receiver here, obviously. But I think it's a commentary on that. It's like, well, let's bring in Dez Bryant, who, if they can get him in shape and get him understanding the playbook, maybe he can make some plays down the stretch. Maybe he has a better connection with Lamar. I think that's what that move reflects more than anything. Hopefully to find some other target. And, it's just not, he does complete passes to Willie Snead and Boykin now and then, and a lot to the running backs and Nick Boyle, but they need a target that will make defenses go, oh, and that would be Dez Bryant if they can ever get him in shape. And so, they're just going to let that percolate a while. I'd be surprised if he plays Sunday.
One receiver who makes me go, oh, for you guys, John, is Hollywood Brown, and he's really kind of elevated his game his sophomore year. I know he added some weight in the offseason. What has he done to kind of take that jump in year number 2?
Well, he definitely had a great offseason. He was the MVP of course, it was a weird offseason with the coronavirus and everything was virtual, but Hollywood was constantly posting these videos of him working out, and you could just see his body changing. And sure enough, he shows up. He's just much stronger. Of course, he had a Liz Frank injury as a rookie, and so he caught almost 50 passes and 7 touchdowns as a rookie with dealing with the after effects. And those Liz Frank injuries, they last a while. He had screws in his foot, and so the screws are out, and he's much faster, better. And Lamar likes throwing to him. And a lot of it is on crossing routes. another way that they've sort of been predictable is a lot of stuff is between the hash marks. And Hollywood is good at getting open, and he can turn a short gain into a long one, and they have a nice connection, and it's one of the best things they have going in the passing game is Lamar's connection with Hollywood and with Andrews.
To stick with the offense, I'm going to sound like Mike Tomlin here and talk about division of labor with the run game. I know Mark Ingram is dealing with an ankle injury, but even assuming he plays, does this team seem to have a set plan of going into a game, okay, this running back is going to be the guy, whether that's Ingram, Dobbins, Gus Edwards, or does that maybe change during the game depending on who has the hot hand? Who should we expect to be the lead running back this Sunday against Baltimore?
Well, it depends on Ingram's health. I don't know what the status is with his ankle. If he's healthy, he has started every game. He gets the first carry, and they use him, in and out a little more than the other guys, a little bit. Gus is definitely the second quarter or the second half sort of change of pace hammer. And Dobbins has been used on third downs. They use him out of the backfield. In my mind, not enough touches for Dobbins. He's done some good things when he gets the ball, and he really had his first opportunity after in the last game against the Eagles after Ingram got hurt, and he didn't do as well. The Eagles have a good front, and they gave the Ravens trouble, and there weren't that many holes. So, but he certainly deserves a chance. So it's very hard to predict, and they have this great three-headed monster. They're all good running backs and they need touches. And they're in the end winding up with about as many touches as the running backs got a year ago. So with not quite as much production, but plenty of production still. So it's very hard to predict. I cannot tell you who it'll be. They'll go with the hot hand, and it's just hard to predict how it's going to go from game to game.
Gotcha. And then you mentioned at the top filling those big shoes left by Marshall Yonda. I know Tyree Phillips has worked at right guard, and who's a tackle at Mississippi State kicking inside. Has he been the main guy, Phillips replacing Yonda at right guard? And I know it's impossible to play at that level of Yonda, but how has he done trying to replace him the best he can?
Yeah, it's been sort of a surprise. I mean, I wouldn't have picked him to be the guy. They brought in DJ Fluker, and I thought it was going to be Fluker. Fluker's more of the swing tackle at this point, the backup tackle. So Ronnie Stanley's been dealing with some nagging injuries, and they really, Fluker's already played both tackle positions this year. And so I think they use him in that role more, and yes, gave the job to Phillips. And Phillips is their prototype of an offensive lineman. He's a big, strong sort of rumbler. And he's, it started like you would expect with a rookie. Wasn't so great at first. It's gotten a little bit better. He did deal with a shoulder injury. I think it's his position going forward, and they're really playing a long game there in the interior of the offensive line. They brought back Matt Skura, who had a bad injury, leg injury, knee injury, came back from it really quickly to become the starting center again this year. And with Phillips next to him at right guard, I think they started those guys at the beginning of the year. They're sticking with him. I think they knew it wasn't going to be maybe so great early in the year because of Skura's injury and Phillips' inexperience, but they're hoping that it gets better in the long run. So, it's a long game, as I said. So they're hopeful of seeing that the arrow continue to go up, and certainly the Steelers will pose a challenge.
When you flip over to the defensive side of football, John, and look, Calais Campbell, what a large human that guy is. Mike Tomlin affectionately called him a goon yesterday. I'm sure they'll probably twist that one up on the other side of the fence over there and try to use it for bulletin board material. But always a big fan of his. And look, Derek Wolfe, when he came out, I think it was originally with the Broncos there, really liked him. And Guakwe, I think the Steelers had a little bit of interest in him way back prior to the draft. And then you look at guys, they've obviously lost Earl Thomas during the offseason. I kind of figured that would be a little bit bigger blow than what it wound up being. And then Patrick Queen, for a kid to come in and not have the offseason program and everything along those lines. He sure seems to be fitting in good so far. Amazingly, L.J. Fort, who we were kind of kind of surprised with a couple years ago, didn't get run, when Ryan Shazier went down there, top to bottom. And when you look at who the Ravens have played so far this season, is this Ravens defense what we think it is right now, or is what is your overall kind of perception of how this defense is playing right now? Have they kind of played anybody yet? And I guess really the big question is are we really going to learn more about this Ravens defense on Sunday at Baltimore against the Steelers?
You just answered it right there with the end. We're going to learn more. They have to date. The Chiefs toyed with them. They just toyed with them. The Chiefs looked like they knew what was coming and just moved the ball up and down the field. The Ravens had an awful night. The defense was not good. Receivers were open, no pressure on Mahomes. They ran the ball. It was a disaster. So anything that happens after that makes people say, okay, well, maybe you can beat the Washington football team, and maybe you can beat the Eagles, and maybe you can beat the Bengals. Just really shellacked the Bengals and Joe Burrow when they came in here, almost killed him, Burrow. But you can do that. But the Chiefs, look what the Chiefs did to you. Who are you? And I think people are still asking that question. I don't think there's any doubt. It's a good defense. I mean, there's Pro Bowl guys, top to bottom. Marlon Humphrey in the back, Calais Campbell in the front, Judon. I mean, just go on and on. It's a high-energy, attacking defense. Wink Martindale, the coordinator, brings the heat more than any defensive coordinator in the league. And, they will hit you hard, and they'll take risks. And so sometimes they pay. The Chiefs beat that with a lot of misdirection. Third downs will be interesting in this game. And so, it'll be interesting to see how Ben and the Steelers attack that. But, I mean, They haven't missed Earl Thomas much at all, and that's a credit to Deshaun Elliott. As a third-year player they drafted a few years ago. They always liked him, but not enough. They went and got Earl, but Deshaun has played well. They haven't given up. They gave up a couple big plays in the last game against the Eagles, and the Eagles almost came back and stole the game after being far behind. Sort of let down in that game, the Ravens did. But Deshaun Elliott has played well. Patrick Queen, as you mentioned, he might be Defensive Rookie of the Year. He really, playing behind that veteran defensive line and in front of a really strong secondary, he's in a sweet spot and has just been set loose to make plays, and he's doing it. He's fast. He's instinctive. I mean, there's a couple games he looked like he's not as big as Ray Lewis, but he was making plays from sideline to sideline. Impressive to see. So it's a good defense. The Steelers will challenge it, though. I'm interested to see how that plays out.
When I was on a Brazilian Steelers podcast last night, and what a joy it was for me to talk to those guys. Very passionate, very knowledgeable fan base, in Brazil there. And they asked me a good question about the upcoming game, about how do you go about attacking this Ravens defense. And from what I've seen so far, of course, we get a little bit harder and deeper into the tape study starting today and on into Friday, where we really start getting Alex and I previewing the side of things there. So with that, I had thought maybe the Ravens defense at first blush is the kind of defense that you can run on, especially maybe off of right guard there. It seemed a little bit susceptible to the run so far there. Now I'll turn the tables and ask you, how do you attack? Where is the weakest part of this Ravens defense? How would you suggest the Steelers go about attacking it?
I think the teams that have had success definitely run the ball and see how that goes. The Chiefs had success, and that's why they brought Calais Campbell in here, by the way, was to stop the run. It was a very sort of under the radar weakness on the defense last year in big games, certainly a playoff loss here. Tennessee Titans came in here and Derrick Henry ran wild, and they just couldn't. They didn't stop the run that well, and that is what the Ravens do. That's the first commandment of Ravens defense for decades, going back to Rex Ryan. Stop the run, make them pass, and go from there. So if you can't do that, so that's why they brought in Campbell, really, to be a run stopper, Derek Wolfe. So I would test the waters there. And then I would use them. I mean, they're aggressive. They're bringing the heat. I would try to use that against them. Screens, misdirection. That's what the Chiefs did very effectively. Let them commit and try to beat them to the punch with it. And certainly with Ben, his ability to extend plays, that should work to his favor. The ability to get away from that. The pressure is coming, guaranteed. So what can you do about it? And I would try to make the most of it and attack it.
We've seen so far this season the fingerprints of Matt Canada, the Steelers' new quarterbacks coach, all over the offense, mostly in motions, pre-snap motion, before the snap of the football there. Usually runs about, 13, 14 plays a game that we're seeing them doing this. Obviously, most of those plays, a large percentage of them are running plays there, but the success rate has been good. We see Kansas City, it's a copycat league, and obviously the Steelers are a little bit late to the party on this and all. But how have the Ravens defense, how have they handled as a unit overall, heavy usage of kind of this pre-snap motion on offenses playing them?
I don't know that that's been. I mean, the Chiefs do it, and everything worked for the Chiefs that night. I don't know that stood out as something that worked. I don't think that's been a bugaboo for them. Where they've given up plays like the last game was a little unsettling for some fans. The Ravens had 24-6 late in that game and wound up barely winning. Needed a 2-point conversion stop to survive, to keep them going into overtime. They started giving up big plays. I think you're more likely to see this defense give up big plays than get surprised by pre-snap motion.
John, us Steeler fans are talking a lot about green dots this past week after the loss of Devin Bush, who was going to be the central communicator. For you guys, who is the central communicator? Is it Patrick Queen, the rookie? Is he the 3-down guy? And if not, is that other guy who's the communicator wearing the green dot? Is that guy in every down play? Basically, who does the communication run through in Baltimore right now?
Runs through Chuck Clark, the safety,
okay.
And they love it. They love it. They think it's in great hands. Chuck is quite a success story. I mean, he was a 6th-round draft pick who, they've been signing veteran safeties here for years. Tony Jefferson, Earl Thomas, and when Tony went down with an injury last year, they put, Chuck Clark knew the playbook and has great instincts, smart guy, and they put him in there. And immediately when Tony went down, the defense got better. And very quickly they said, "This is our green dot guy." They had Eric Weddle here, but Chuck knows where everybody's supposed to be, and they're thrilled with him in that role.
And he's an every down safety, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The whole secondary is pretty much 3-down guys.
Right,
I mean, you're going to see Marcus Peters, all of them.
Gotcha.
Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith's playing a lot in different roles, and Chuck never comes off the field.
Gotcha. And I wanted to talk about Humphrey because this dude's got 6 forced fumbles the last 2 seasons. That's not only the most of any defensive back, it's tied for 3rd most in the entire NFL. It's 2 fewer than TJ Watt. What makes him so effective at punching out the football? We saw that last year on Juju to basically win that game for Baltimore. What makes Humphrey so good at taking away the football?
Man, the guy's the new Peanut Tillman, man. I tell you.
Well, yeah, that's what they're calling it, the peanut punch, and he's just really good at it, and he's doing it all the time. You watch, when there's a completion, he's coming in and bam, he's just trying it constantly, and he's just got a good feel for it, when to try it, and he's got the strength to do it. It's a great play, and he tries it more than anyone else. I'll say that, and he just seems to know when to do it, and it's really, I mean, that game last year, that was a game-winning play. And he's made them this year too. And if I can guarantee you, the Steelers are trying to prepare for that. Hold on to the darn ball when here comes Marlon Humphrey, because he's going to take a swipe at it.
When my guy Devin Duvernay, had the big, I think it was the return. I think it was against the Chiefs there in that game, but really not seeing too much other of him. Big plays. I really liked his tape when I got into it during the offseason. Where is he? And obviously we talked about Des Bryant being coming in here, and where is he at in his development right now? What seems to be, what was it, kind of an overreaction on him, or is it just, with not having the offseason program, just having trouble kind of catching up with the NFL game? What have you seen so far? Where is the fan base at with Devin Duvernay?
The fan base and the media, and me included, is like, give him the ball more, because things happen when he touches it. He's fast, and he doesn't look overwhelmed at all. He's just not getting a ton of opportunities. This is another example of sort of, they need to diversify the offense more than the passing game I'm talking about. And here's a guy that's just waiting, and he's a playmaker. They've gotten the ball in his hands on some jet sweeps and some completions, a little bit more every game. I think this is a guy that could evolve into a bigger role down the stretch, because they do like the ball in his hands, and things are happening, and he's just got this great speed. And so that may be a point of emphasis going forward, is he does not look overwhelmed by the NFL game. He just needs the ball more, a lot more.
Mike Tomlin yesterday during his press conference was asked about Lamar Jackson. Specifically, he says, "Is there anything you can glean from how you played Lamar Jackson last year, or has he just grown so much as a quarterback?" And he goes, he says the Ravens are obviously better to talk about that, and in so many words, he doesn't know, and that the rest of the NFL is still trying to figure out Lamar Jackson as well too, and which is understandable here. But the Steelers did do a very good job against him in Week 5 of that game last season, and probably statistically and tape-wise and marrying those two things together, it's probably right now serves as the worst start that Lamar Jackson has had overall. So with that, let me put it on you. What do the Steelers need to do? What is the answer? How do you go about defending a guy like Lamar Jackson?
Well, what teams have done, and I guarantee you, the Steelers fit this prototype, is number one, as I said, spread the field to keep him from beating you with his legs, which is the main reason why he was such an amazing threat a year ago. And so they're trying to do that. As I said, he is still counterpunched with some long runs up the middle. He's very difficult to contain for a whole game. So, but I would do that and bring the pressure on him, because he's a little bit predictable at this point. He's throwing the ball over the middle, between the hash marks to a couple of guys. So, I bring the pressure on him, and if you can defend the guys he likes to throw to, you've got him bottled up a little bit. So right. he needs to diversify a little bit, and but the Steelers, I think they just have a good defense, and so that's why they had it. He's come a long way since Week 5 last year, though. That's the thing. He really had not taken off. His numbers through 6 games this year, and there's a lot of scrutiny on him this year, his numbers actually are better this year than last year. It was down the stretch that he just took off and became such a playmaker, and he's got more to adjust to this year, so it'll be interesting to see. But that's still what the Ravens have going for them more than anything, is the fact that he touches the ball on every play, because things happen. Even on days where he's not that great, things happen, positive things. And so the other thing I would do in playing him is, if you have a couple good series, don't hit yourself on the back and say, "Hey, we're doing a great job." But the next thing you know, he'll run up the field, 40-yard touchdown up the middle, and you're behind. So It's impressive.
When you've obviously covered, quite a few of these Steeler Ravens games over the years, so as we do every time with you, and this won't come out until a little bit later in the day, and we won't go about broadcasting it on Twitter. We'll make them listen to it and then hear it that way. So John, look, it should be a good game between these two teams in Baltimore. Obviously, the Ravens play the Steelers better at home. I imagine there's going to be a smattering of fans there this week at M&T Bank Stadium as well too. Should be interesting, that aspect of it. Where are you on this game? How about a prediction for this game?
I think a lot of games, and this would be one, come down to who needs it more. this. I do think if the Ravens lose this game, they're 2 games behind the Steelers with the rematch in Pittsburgh. That's a pretty tough situation to be in. So they really need this game if they're going to win the AFC North for the 3rd year in a row. So I tend to think that certainly the players aren't thinking about that, but I think in the long run might be a difference maker. I see these teams as pretty darn even at this point. It's a great matchup, and I say Baltimore takes this one 27-25.
All right, fair enough. 2-point game. Another within 3 points. That would be shocking to nobody if it ended up that way. All right, John, look, here we are, late October. That means I think my wife's fixing to have the Christmas tree up here in the Steelers Depot Metroplex already. So with that, look, several books out there. I think The League would probably be the one you would most suggest that Steelers fans pick up as maybe a great stocking stuffer this year. So, they don't need to take our word for it. Tell them a little bit about The League and why they should go out and buy it, really, for any football fan on their Christmas list.
Yeah, any fan, and definitely Pittsburgh fans, because it's the League is really sort of a creation story of the NFL, and it talks about the 5 owners. Focuses on the 5 owners who took the league by the lapels and carried it through the first decades when it was not a successful league, when it was really a failing enterprise. How did they do that? And how did they set up the league to succeed down the line? How did they work together? And Art Rooney is one of those owners. And so there's tons of stuff in there about the early days of the Steelers, which were not good at all, as you know, and really interesting, zeroing in on Art. And I had a great time reporting that out. And so, yeah, I think Pittsburgh fans would enjoy reading about it's really what's the stat that I saw when he went into the Hall of Fame in 1964? I think the Steelers had been around for 30-something years. They'd had 7 winning seasons, but he went into the Hall of Fame because almost as soon as they opened the doors of that thing, because of his role in helping develop the league. And so this is really that story, and he's in there along with the stories of some other key people, George Halas and others. So definitely something for Pittsburgh fans, I think.
Absolutely. And they can get it by, I think they can go to johneisenberg.com. They can go to Amazon, really any place online that sells books, I believe, has the League there. And, Alex has read it. I've read it as well, too. Fantastic book that way. And look forward to maybe you having some more books written, down the line here. But in the meantime, we'll keep having you on. John, we appreciate your time as always. And, we look forward to doing this again a few more weeks from now. You look at the Ravens schedule, these next 5 games are kind of interesting for the Ravens. Yep. Two of them against the Steelers. I think the Patriots, who are the Patriots, or what team is that? They're sandwiched in there. And I think another tough game, I think the Colts are within that next 5 as well too. So going to be interesting the next time we talk to you previewing Steelers Ravens too. But as always, John, we appreciate your time and thanks for coming back on the Terrible Podcast today.
Thanks, John.
Always enjoy it thoroughly, and thanks for having me on, and it's always a good time. So look forward to coming back on again.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our special thanks to John Eisenberg. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at @BeMoreEisenberg and tell him you said hello and thank you for being on the Terrible Podcast. He's always a great guest, Dave, for many years now, and brings some terrific insight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not overly surprised he picked the Ravens, right? I can understand game in Baltimore and all like that. And who is it a bigger game for this week, Alex? Who is it a bigger game for this week, the Ravens or the Steelers?
Well, I think the way that John framed it, if the Ravens were to lose, hypothetically, they're now 5-2. Steelers were 7-0, so they're up 2 games with the first game won over Baltimore. So from a purely divisional race standpoint, it probably is a bigger game for Baltimore to win this one than Pittsburgh. But obviously, these games are always massive for either side.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, let's get into the all-22 of the Tennessee Titans win that put the Steelers to 6-0, and just kind of what are your general initial impressions after starting to go through the coaches' tape from this past game?
Yeah, first and foremost, and I think you already alluded to it, and I think we've got some great film rooms coming up on it as well, too. Boy, the things that jump off on tape with the play, once again, of that defensive line and the linebackers. Boy, Watt, two tackles for loss. I like the breakdown, the comparison to what J.J. Watt did the week earlier there, and kind of learning from that. And it just goes to show you the kind of film preparation that a guy like T.J. Watt is putting in on a week-to-week basis here. Tyson Alualu hasn't found the fountain of youth; he's found the geyser of youth, and I feel like I should buy some sort of Tyson Alualu action figure or something, or uniform or jersey at this point, because of let's be honest with you, a couple years ago, prior to last season, prior to the 2019 season, I was kind of wondering if Tyson Alualu was maybe about done, But if anybody's reinvented it or reinvigorated himself and indeed found now we go from, or I'm at the stage now, is I'm wondering how you can let Tyson Alualu go right off into the sunset after this season, the way he's playing right now. Defensively, scheme-wise, the thing that kind of shakes out the most is obviously that big explosive play to A.J. Brown for the touchdown there. When you look at the end zone view of that, Alex, I don't know if that's changed your opinion on this in any way. The ball went to Vince Williams, looking offense the viewpoint from the offensive side of things. That ball went to the left of Vince Williams there, and Vince did a great job of getting in, dropping quickly into position and getting an arm. That thing went right by his right ear there, and I almost wonder if Minkah was waiting for that ball to come out on the other side of Vince, that pass being completed, on the other side. Not that that's a huge excuse. I think regardless of where that ball comes out, maybe regardless of what he was expecting, you still got to find a way maybe to take a better angle and get that guy down on the ground there. But I'm a tad bit more forgivable to Minkah on, I don't know, you call it a false step or whatever, right after that, because that's obviously where he got himself in a world of trouble there, was that half second after that completion is made there. That's one thing that stuck out to me. And boy, I mean, Vince just inches away from that, deflecting that thing down there. And what happens if he deflects that up in the air? What happens if he just gets a pinky on that? I mean, obviously that's kind of the what ifs that we could talk about every week in every game there. But that was one of the first plays, I think, that I went to in that game overall. The second one that I went to was the last minute interception. Why wouldn't you throw that pass? I mean, you kind of got the look that I think that they expected in that, with Juju running the middle seam against the linebacker there. I'm more forgivable and understandable of why Ben made the decision that he made. And once again, I think we go back to what we talked about the other day, Alex. If Juju makes a fantastic catch on that, or if that ball's a little bit higher, if that ball even deflects and goes down to the ground, are we talking this much about the play? It's so results slanted that that's why we are talking about it there. Now, could he have hit who's coming up underneath there? Deontay, short of the sticks. Now, I think if you look, by the time Deontay's flashing to Ben was predetermined, I think, on that throw, mostly. Would Deontay have got the first down in that situation? Does it matter if he would have got the first down in that situation, because you're still going to get probably points in that situation and kick a field goal overall? Yeah, you could be a lot more conservative and not take the risk there, but that's kind of what Ben is here. And once again, if that ball, the linebacker made a fantastic play on it. If you're going to complain about anything on that play, maybe you're doing something on that other side with the route combination that takes the safety a little bit further out of the play. Sure. I mean, the corner a little bit further out of the play on that other side. The safety on on the other side, because it's a too deep, takes him a little bit maybe further out of the play, that when that ball is deflected, that safety's not converging on the play. So maybe if you're going to have any criticism about that play in general, it's that the play design should have encompassed maybe a more vertical or more corner route on the left side of that formation that draws that safety around. But who if you're not Bill Belichick, maybe who's thinking that far out in that situation?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I hadn't even considered that, but that is an important element of the play. Yeah, my thoughts on that play, the Ben interception, the third one, are basically unchanged from where we were on Monday, where it was not as bad a decision as I thought initially it was. I think it was a fine decision. It was just a poor throw, where that ball's got to be higher, more back shoulder. It's got to be one of those, either your guy catches it or no one catches it type things. And it was a tight throw, but welcome to the NFL in the red zone. Like, most of those throws are going to be tight throws. The first touchdown to Deontay Johnson was a very tight throw that Ben, I think, intentionally threw a little behind Deontay, because the safety, the single-eye safety, is screaming down if he leads him out in front on that one. So that's just playing football. You don't expect that one to get tipped up in the air either. Usually you think it's going to be incomplete. It gets just broken up and the pass falls to the ground. You kick the field goal regardless. So, again, I think the decision was fine. The throw and the execution of the throw by Ben was the part that's worth criticizing on that play.
Right, and the three interceptions that we talked about already, look, the tip pass, and I think Ben, and I haven't read the entire transcript from this morning, but he kind of says, look, you've been running a lot of RPOs, and obviously Ben's been getting the ball out a lot quicker. I think defenses have been kind of sensing this, and what do they tell you? If you can't get home, you see the quarterback start going into the throw motion, get your hands up, and I think maybe that's possibly the cause of this. We're seeing more tip passes. Maybe that's the result of kind of Ben getting the ball out quicker. And once again, this isn't new news when it comes to Ben getting rid of the ball quick. Now, is he getting the ball rid of quicker than he ever has before in his entire career? Absolutely he is. But if you go back to 2018, once again, it's a lot of the same stuff, right? Maybe a little bit more RPO stuff mixed in there, and obviously more pre-snap motion stuff. But I tell you the interception that I had the biggest problem with now after watching the all 22, and that's the end of the half one. Because
it was a bad call by the coaching staff.
Right? Who called it though? I mean, is Ben making the call there? Is Fietner making the call there? Who do we blame it on? Do we know for sure?
Well, I don't know for sure, but it wasn't no huddle, so I assume it came from the sideline. I mean, it's first play of the drive after the false start. I mean, they're running a Hail Mary play with 14 seconds left when they need like 7 yards to get into field goal range. I don't know why they're calling that play like it's a Hail Mary situation.
That's the biggest thing that stuck out is 4 verts on that. Nobody's even running a quick sideline, 7-yard on either side. And look, they were inviting it too. If you look at the defense that they're in really kind of a prevent, kind of take the 7 yards up underneath if you want it on the sideline.
Right, which would have been the smart play, kick the field goal.
Right. So why? Okay. So if that's the call, why wouldn't Ben and Ben sees kind of a I think there's, in other words, I think there's blame. I think there's plenty of blame to hand around on this, because if Ben has the autonomy, that's not going to be my new word, autonomy. The autonomy to change plays and route combinations and all like that in certain situations like we saw a couple of weeks ago against the Eagles there, why maybe wouldn't he audible to something, to a quick out maybe on that left side over there? Because look, you're out of timeouts in that situation, right?
Correct.
All right, but even so, you got 14 seconds left. If you run and out, you get tackled in bounds there for some reason. All right, you still probably got enough time to get up there and get the ball spiked, right? on a 7-yard out?
Well, just depending on what the other routes are. If everyone else is running vertical, those guys got to race back. But you got a chance. I mean, you do have a chance to spike it with like a second left.
So whoever you want to put the blame on, I think there's enough to hand around all the way to Ben, to Randy, to Mike Tomlin here in that situation. 14 seconds is a lot of time, and 3 points is just perfectly fine in that situation there.
Yeah, because that would have made it 27-7 going into the half, and then 30-7 hypothetically you could kick the field goal coming out of the half. So
and you got a gift to begin with there.
Right.
So make sure you give yourself the best opportunity to come away with points there. And I think in that specific now, look, if it's 5 seconds left or 8 seconds left, yeah, run your 4 verticals there or whatever. But 14 seconds left and really, it was a Hail Mary pass is what it was. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason for him to throw where he did and the kind of pass that he threw.
Yeah, I mean, I know, wasn't it versus the Jets last year where they hit that to Mason to Deontay, I think, at the end of the half, and it kind of worked that way. So maybe they were just trying to hope for that same result, but I would have just
That's a bad plan if you're doing it.
Yeah.
I'm
just trying to think
flawed.
their mindset. Yeah, I mean, that's some results-based stuff. So, yeah, I did not. Regardless of who you want to blame it on specifically, the design of the play to me was poor and did not really give you a chance to maximize points at the end of the half.
Well, not there's nothing wrong with the design of the play because the play was that's the way the play is designed.
Well, right. I'm saying
the
decision to design the play that way. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean.
Or the decision to call that to run that specific play is what we take issue with there. So. That of all the 3 interceptions is the one that I take most issue with now coming from the all 22. What else stuck out to you, offensively or defensively? James Conner, I love angry James Conner.
Yeah, even as a lead blocker on that one to what Ray I think had it on the end around, and he's throwing a good lead block. So yeah, Conner ran hard. Yeah, their line did a good job up front. Hawkins with that big block on the Benny Snell touchdown run for sure. Eric Ebron, I was impressed with Eric Ebron. His effort as a blocker, his willingness to go across the middle, leaving his feet, sacrificing his body, some big collisions he had in that one. So kudos to Ebron. I thought he was really valuable over the middle of the field.
Look, I'll continue to say it. I was worried about, Ebron a lot heading into this season as a blocker. He's not going to go to the Pro Bowl. Sorry, folks, not going to make me look that bad. But he has been giving quite a bit of good effort in the blocking game. Something that you got to know that he's probably not overly thrilled about, though, in that. But from what he has put on tape on certain plays in the blocking department, I've been impressed with.
I mean, he's still a bad blocker. He's trying really hard, and that's good enough for me. If you use leverage and angles, and his effort, it's enough. I mean, he tried to combo the one block, and it just did not work. But the effort is there. And
sometimes if you get in the way, sometimes you never know how it can play out. So
right,
there has been a lot more positive than I thought we would see in that category.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was also impressed with Alex Highsmith, and he's starting to really emerge as the number 3 outside linebacker. Let me find where I had the number here. The first 3 games of the season, him and Ola Adeni played about the same number of snaps. Highsmith had 28, Adeni had 26. The last 3 games, Tennessee included, Ola's played only 12, Highsmith has played 27. So there's not a lot of snaps to obviously go behind Watt and Dupree because those guys rarely come off the field. They're playing 80% of the time, but Highsmith has now been playing the clear majority of snaps as that number 3 guy, both left and right outside linebacker, and I think he's fluid. I mean, he was covering Corey Davis, the receiver, on the one play, had a great turn and tackle. I don't love the matchup there. It's a twin set. Steelers don't generally travel their corners on twin sets like that, but I was impressed with Highsmith. I think he's playing the run hard, he's getting off blocks, and I think he's showing his athleticism and coverage.
One thing I've learned over the years when going back through the all-22 and you see one thing, something catches your eye, let's say the first time on a play there, and then you're focused on that and you can't wait to cut it up and throw it up on Twitter or write about it there. one thing I've learned over there is you got to go back and watch the play multiple times to see if there's anything else going on in a play, because sometimes you can have a play and there's be so many things going on in a play that you want to make sure that you identify. That was the case in one of those running plays there that Derrick Henry, I think, 2 yards or something along those lines. It starts off with Tyson Alualu tossing a center at the quarterback, okay, which is pretty impressive when you watch the play start to end there. Not only that, you have Vince Williams at the second level effectively keeping his feet clean on what looks like a fairly good second level block by the offensive lineman there. So you have Vince, what we affectionately, I think, like to call avoiding the trash there, getting himself in position and getting in on the tackle. And really, the third, and unless you watch a lot of tape, you probably don't pick up a lot on this if you don't understand responsibilities, is Alex Highsmith on that play having respectful backside contain first and foremost. Second of all, properly running down the line behind the play and doing so at a nice closing rate that he gets in on the play on that.
Yeah, it's just really good team run defense where everyone's doing their job, everyone's running to the football, everybody's playing hard and physical and finishing the play. And I think that's a great illustration of that. It's one of the plays I have included in my article this morning on Steelers Depot, saying Pittsburgh plays better team run defense than anyone else. You can't have a good run defense if you have one or two good run defenders. You better have a really strong front seven overall. You better have good depth. You better have good cornerback play and secondary support to stop the run. And the Steelers have all of those things, and that's why, to me, they are the best run defense in football.
And you think back to I can think back specifically. I think it was a game against the Texans several years ago where they kind of caught. I want to say it was Lamar Woodley even trying to crash down on the backside of a run so quick, and then they misdirection out the other way, and you give up contain there. So I bet you can see where kind of the coaching maybe is coming in with Alex Highsmith on situations where he is maybe kind of a free guy at the end of the line like that. That, boy, you better not let something get out the back door with you on that. So there is a level first of respectability when you're playing it from that side where you say, all right, I got to respect the backside here because I'm it.
And the Titans boot a good amount too. So
right.
Be careful of Tannehill on the move.
Exactly. And I think you guys, I think somewhere maybe in the pregame breakdowns, I think maybe you highlighted that and all. So overall, if you look at that play, start to finish, that one specifically, probably the last thing, and it might not even jump out at most people, is the play of Alex Highsmith on that play. It's probably the third thing that sticks out to you on there. But it's just one of those things that I think needs to be brought up when talking about the progression of one Alex Highsmith here. It looks like he's slowly getting a lot more comfortable in the defense there, and I think he's starting to show some elements where, hey, maybe this kid's going to be okay against the run.
And I think the snap count is reflecting that right now, to be honest with you. And another play I have in that article I referenced is maybe my favorite Bud Dupree, TJ Watt run rep ever. And there's a whole lot of good ones of them, but it's the first one I have in the post. It's Watt coming in backside. Why do teams leave TJ Watt unblocked on the backside?
Know.
I mean, they just are asking
why they put tight ends on him and Dupree sometimes either. Yeah. I don't understand that.
They're just asking for it. So Watt comes in backside free, makes the tackle officially on Derrick Henry for a 2-yard loss. But on the front side of that one, they're running power with the big right guard, Nate Davis, a real squatty body, 320-pound dude. And Bud Dupree just lowers the shoulder, lowers the boom, jolts Davis to guard backwards. Henry has nowhere to go, and ultimately Watt and Dupree close in on Henry for the tackle. And so just Dupree just knocking back a guard like that. Very few edge guys are going to do that, and it just shows the strength and just how big Bud Dupree is. He's dropped weight, and he's still such a massive human being, and really fun to watch those guys play the run.
What a metamorphosis that guy's had.
I think he's under 250 now because Keith Butler made a comment last week saying Derrick Henry's 250, and I think he's a little bit bigger than Bud because the whole, have Bud Dupree be the scout team running back topic came up. And so I think that implied that Dupree's somewhere in the 240 range now. And he came in at 269, and he's still like just this brick house that you cannot move, and he's dropped some weight.
I mean, this guy just over the last couple of seasons alone has gone from, man, there are people on Twitter now trying to figure out ways of, oh man, maybe they're doing this so they can keep Bud Dupree, which we all look.
I would love for them to do that.
I mean, but it's not happening, right? It's not happening. But how amazing is it that? And I'm sure there's still some people that are caught up in their original narrative on Bud Dupree that, oh, he's only doing this because of contract year and all like that. No, we said this mid last season. Bud Dupree was starting to do things that he had never put on tape before. Period. So this isn't a case of a guy just laying around until it was a contract year here. This is a guy that developed, specifically the last couple years, and developed at a fast rate now. I mean, he is a premier, and one thing that in the meantime, while he hasn't always been, that kind of, premier pass rusher, especially that he is now, he's always been fairly good, stout against the run on top of it. And now he's just an all-around player. And without a doubt, these guys are top two edge duo in the NFL right now. Yeah.
The only problem is about having premier pass rushers, premier edge rushers, is that they got to pay them like premier pass rushers and edge rushers. And therein lies the problem. But yeah, Dupree's work ethic has never been a concern. This dude works his tail off. Him and TJ work as hard as anybody, and I think that's proving in the results they have, and both these guys are going to get paid very handsomely in 2021.
All right, we talked about Vince. Vince does Vince things. No, there's still such a good. You'll be hard pressed to find an inside linebacker that plays downhill as good as Vince Williams is playing right now, right? I mean, the guy running backs now, they don't even check his ticket stub no more.
Yeah, that's why I took a little umbrage at the question that was asked. Like, is Vince Williams, how is he getting better? He's so much different. I'm like, Vince is the same dude now as he was in 2013 coming out of Florida State. Like, obviously he's refined his game. He's become a better pass rusher, but like, just in terms of being that physical, just dog, like that's always been his game. So it's no different, as Tomlin said. He's just getting the chance to play a lot more this season.
I mean, I think the day one, the thing that has always been attractive for Vince going back to his Florida State place is that guy would go from point A to point B downhill in a hurry. All right. I mean, he had good instincts, a good see to do moving down here. Where he would get himself in trouble, obviously get flat-footed sometimes in zone coverages and out in space sometimes. But I mean, he's actually look. I mean, they had that screen over there to Derrick Henry over to the right side in that game. He snuffed that thing out real quick. And once again, running backs want no part of that no more. They've already seen. They've already seen the news, when it comes to that. Derrick Henry just said, no, on that sack, and really credit Vince too, because he got a quick kind of whoop-de-whoop, step over to his left and just went right around Derrick Henry in that aspect. So that's not the issue there. So no more talking about Vince Williams based on that tape against the Titans. Anything stick out to you about Robert Spillane's play?
Yeah, again, it's just that physical downhill nature. And while obviously Devin Bush is the better player overall, where Spillane honestly offers an upgrade over Bush in some senses, being that physical downhill presence against the run. He's going to take on the insert block better than Devin Bush will, more physically. He's going to take on the fullback in the hole or take on that base block a little bit better and stronger at the point of attack than Devin Bush would. So again, obviously, I'm not saying otherwise. Bush is a better player. I'd rather have Devin Bush on the field, but in that limited aspect versus a team like Tennessee, Spillane's very downhill, physical, sacrifices body type of nature works better in that, again, limited sense than Devin Bush.
All right. Anything else? I mean, the big play was sad. Cameron Hayward probably not making a lot of noise, but he's still snatch and pull guy.
Yeah, he's still putting guards in quarterbacks' laps. Like, right. It's just the strength this guy has. To me, I mean, obviously you've watched more Steelers football longer than I have, but to me, he's the strongest defensive lineman I've ever watched in Pittsburgh.
He can get them going either way he wants to. I think there's one snap in there near the goal. I think it was a Robert Spillane hit. Look what he does to the guard on that play.
Mm-hmm.
Snatch and jerk him, push pull. On that one. And then, as you mentioned, there's still other snaps that, look, he's just losing the race to the quarterback.
Because he's the one that plays discipline. He's
right.
doing his job and kind of letting other guys to it, likes to freelance a little bit more. And so Hayward doesn't always get the stats because he's cleaning up other people's messes sometimes.
Right. A TAM move. Had you ever heard of a TAM move?
No, I haven't.
When basically when a defensive tackle goes the gap over, from
okay.
I don't think I've ever heard it referred to that before, but I did this past week there. Is there a better defensive end that essentially wrong gaps? Goes the gap over, by design a lot,
Sure. I mean, yeah, again, these guys can one gap, they can two gap. I call Cam Hayward the best crasher in football in some of these stunts. Like Bud Dupree better give a couple of dollars to Cam Hayward when he gets paid this offseason because he gets free on some of those stunts because of the work Cam Hayward does. So the attention to detail, the effort, the consistency, the volume of snaps in which Cam Hayward plays are all just remarkable and something very few defensive linemen are capable of doing.
What else? Anything stick out to you defensively on all 22?
Yeah, Cam Sutton, again, really good game. Justin Lane seemed like he was holding his own in his limited amount of snaps. I know he didn't play a whole lot out there in dime packages as the right cornerback, but he's at least getting his feet wet, which is good to get some tape on Justin Lane.
What about offensively?
I was really impressed with the receivers, obviously, but just Juju fighting hard for extra yards, Deontay Johnson. I mean, you play off coverage on Deontay Johnson, you do that at your own risk. Like, you're not going to tackle that guy. The first guy won't, at least. And so, while there's still some inconsistency in his game, and you want to see him finish some plays and things like that, work on the chemistry between him and Big Ben, this dude's fun to watch in space, and he can run those slants. And if you're playing off coverage because it's a stack set or whatever the reason is, he's going to just make you pay for it. And so he's just a ton of fun to watch.
Probably one of Marquise Pouncey's worst games, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy. He had a very soft inside shoulder. He gave up too much interior pressure. Ben complimented the snaps today, and so that's always an important element. I think we're not seeing these snap issues nearly as often and as horrifically as we saw last year, so thank goodness for that. But, yeah, it was not the best game for Pouncey, and the Ravens will be up next, and he always has some trouble versus Baltimore.
Absolutely. It was quite evident that he was probably the weakest link on that offensive line in that game.
Yeah, I mean, no one was... Matt Filer in pass pro, I don't know. He's doing worse in pass pro than I thought he would.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, I got him down for 2.5 sacks this season, and he gave a couple of pressures from some big guys, from some small guys coming off the edge, and so, not happy with that.
Where are you now on the re-signing of Matt Filer?
Yeah, no, I'm still in favor of re-signing Filer. I guess it'll depend just on market value and stuff like that. But it's just, it's a minor criticism because this line overall is still playing well and Ben's staying clean. But, I thought that was noticeable to Filer on Sunday.
Yeah, the thing that, Pouncey's play, I think, stuck out the most to me. I'll have to go back and concentrate a little bit more on Filer as I kind of wrap up some things I want to look at today. The running game, we already talked about the pre-snap motion stuff and all like that, and did a breakdown of that. I don't think there was anything big that stuck out to me other than a couple of plays where we hit already early in the show. James Conner out in front, doing some nice blocking out in front on a couple of the, I think McLeod, little pitch forwards to him on those plays there. I'm trying to think what else offensively, maybe route combination wise.
Well, I got to say, they got to be disappointed. They called that boot play on the goal line twice, and it worked both times.
Right.
And one was called back on their core for a hold, the other called back or other negated by the Conner drop. So that's like one of those where like, man, this is going to work. We put in this play, and it goes over too. That's got to suck.
And we talked about how they were probably going to build off of some of that motion in the red zone, and how it would probably lead to should it lead to easy plays, and it did. So kudos to us on identifying that. Now here would be my rebuttal back to obviously those both of them failing because of one penalty, one because of drop. At least it's on tape with you having success technically. So that's something else now. At least you added another element to it that people got to have to start respecting. I think the key thing is now you got to keep building on that. Don't rest on your laurels, and you can circle back to some of the stuff from the early days there. But look, I'm impressed with the success rates that they're having with the pre-snap motion right now. The only thing that I would like to see off of that now is start building a little bit of the passing game off of that, because if I'm the opposing defense right now, I know it's run, I have to get some. Maybe it'll happen this week, but and I've been calling it for I think for like 3 weeks now. But start running. Just give somebody something to start thinking about when it comes to maybe the pass game off of motion at the snap of the football.
Yeah, no, I think those are elements you want to continue to add and build off of. And by the way, just another offensive note, Zach Banner tweeting out first day off of crutches. So right. Good milestone for Zach Banner as he works his way back from his torn ACL. Anything else with offense, defense, special teams you want to review, Dave?
Yeah, I want to look a little bit deeper at some route combinations and stuff like that, but I haven't got to that element of the all-22 yet from that game.
All right, and special teams, very solid. Barry punted well. Baugh's kicks were good. Marcus Allen had a really big special teams tackle that might have saved a big run back. And McLeod obviously had that 57-yard return. That was massive.
Yeah, I think still unfortunate on the James Pierre. What after looking at the offensive PI was the other thing that I went straight to, and I don't get it.
Yeah, I think was that Steratore that said that?
Yeah, Gene Steratore. But he's gonna be. He knows his audience. I mean, I like Gene Steratore. I like to hear referees former referees when they talk. Rules analysts and all. Like Mike Piera. I think does a fantastic job. I think he's really detached from caring what people think. The element that I get when I hear Gene Steratore, unfortunately, is this guy knows his audience. You know what I'm saying?
You think? I don't know. Usually it's tough for a former ref to criticize his fellow refs, guys that he knows.
He's a PA guy though too, isn't he?
He's a PA guy. Oh, he's a Pennsylvania guy. Yeah, I think he is. Yeah. That maybe. You got the tinfoil hat on for ref.
Yeah, I do. I put a little less credence in what he says into it because I get the feel that he knows his audience.
Yeah, but we agree that as much I've criticized Jalen Samuels, but he didn't do anything wrong.
Oh yeah, look, I said I don't get it. But I'm not going to use what Gene Steratore said to support my argument.
I will. I will do that. I will say this. The Corey Davis little bump on Minka on that 4th and goal that Minka got called for holding was much closer to OPI than what Jalen Samuels did or didn't do on that 3rd and 2 play.
I mean, if anything, you should be calling defensive pass interference on that, if you're going to call any at all, because those receivers have a right. It's not like he went out of his way to disrupt. He's releasing vertical, Does a receiver not have the right to kind of fight through a jam, if you will?
He does.
So yeah, it just could it be because they just see the 30-something number out there? I don't know. I don't know what influence, but I thought that was a bad call. And look, it was potentially we'd be talking a lot more about that had the game gone the other way. I have a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think. First of all, I think Claypool got the first down. I know they called him short, but I think he really got it. And if he hadn't, and they hadn't called that penalty, I think Tomlin goes for it on 4th and an inch. But we'll never know.
But once again, I think if that game goes the wrong way, I think that becomes the results bias one, or penalty bias one that we go back to that we're talking a lot about. Yeah,
you're not wrong about that. Not at all. All right, Dave, if there's anything else you want to talk about from this game, feel free, or we can jump to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. I feel like we're missing something here. Am I missing something?
No, I think that's everything. I always feel like I'm missing something, but I'm having this coughing fit over here, so I'm just trying to get out of this show alive.
All right, let's jump down into it here. Wow, here we go. The bubble. Oh, shout out to Steelers Brazil, by the way. These guys had me on the podcast finally. Boy, huge fandom, Steelers fandom in Brazil there. They evidently got a huge podcast following and Twitter following there. So they finally got some time freed up. And I'm evidently a big deal in Brazil, Alex. And I would tell you that
is that a most wanted list?
Well, you are as well too, but I don't want you to get a big head. So you are banned from going on the podcast, the Brazil podcast, Steeler fan podcast there, because I'm afraid of how big you will be. No, in all honesty, we are kind of a big deal over in Brazil, both of us there. And that's it was refreshing to go on and kind of hear those guys talking, and they did a good job. They had some really good questions and all like that. So I shouted them out on Twitter last night. It was a real enjoyable interview that I had on them. So much respect to Steelers Brazil there. So I want to make sure I got that out there.
Yeah, no, very cool. The support from Steelers Nation internationally is really awesome. Obviously, there's a big presence in Mexico, big presence in Brazil, really all around the world. And so, I've seen those guys. Those are really good guys too. And so, glad you were on, and glad we're a big deal over there.
And in all seriousness, though, too, we'll try to, guys. I know you're listening. We'll try to get you hooked up with Alex and get Alex on the podcast.
I've been on there before.
Oh, have you been on with him before? Okay.
Not recently, but I have been before. Yeah.
All right. Well, evidently, I'm more of a bigger deal than you are. So how do you like that?
All right, you win.
As they said, Goodwill Hunting. How you like them apples? You know.
Mm-hmm.
No, in all seriousness, I was glad to be on. All right, let's get to some emails there. The bubble ? From Charles Emmering. Hello, lover boys. That is for the great Dave T. May he rest in peace. Yeah, that'll be one of the best sound clips I think that we ever have. Is him rebuttaling something, Alex, and say hello or hold on, lover boy, or something on those lines. There, I look. I'm not gonna soon forget Dave T. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He goes on to say, I'm wondering in the NFL if the NFL may consider going to a bubble or similar environment for the playoffs, at least the Super Bowl. An outbreak during the Super Bowl could be a huge problem. Thanks for the coverage and entertainment, gents. Charlie. That's a great question, Charlie. Or Charles, that wouldn't shock me. I think it would be a great idea. Look, you're already kind of secluded away down there anyway. I would imagine that Super Bowl media week's going to look a lot different than it has in years past. So, yeah, I could definitely, assuming we get to that point, I could definitely see them. I think it's a great idea to do some sort of bubble environment. Maybe not necessarily for the playoffs, but for the Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what the world looks like at that time. It's possible. I know the NFL's tried to stay away from bubble stuff as much as possible, but just given how important that week is and how catastrophic any sort of COVID-related issue may be, that may be the route. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, the bubbles don't guarantee anything either. We just saw with the Dodgers yesterday and what happened with Justin Turner and his positive test. So, fingers crossed that the world's a little bit better come that time.
Yeah, just got to make better decisions, I think, and trust nobody,
There you go.
He doesn't look like he has the Rona.
Who, Turner?
No, anybody.
Oh,
I'm walking. I'm very paranoid when I walk into Walmart. I try to see if anybody looks like they had the Rona.
Well, to be fair, that paranoia was there before coronavirus.
Right.
Long-standing paranoia.
I'm a paranoid dude anyway. All right, Zach writes in, the Tilton Nose. Hey, Dave and Alex, happy Wednesday to you. Tyson Alu has been playing out of his mind, and as Yins have pointed out, he often sets up tilted at an angle to the center. What are the advantages of this technique for a player and within the structure of the defense? Are there any manifest disadvantages, and have the Steelers ever really played their nose tackle tilted like this with such frequency? I note that on one of Mondo's nose tackle snaps, shout out to Alex's run defense film room, he also played tilted. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, the advantages are you can penetrate that gap. You can kind of come off the ball a little bit quicker in that sense. And I think the one you reference of Alualu blowing up the center was a tilted nose, so you just kind of get some more force behind it. Yeah, actually, really, the Steelers basically invented the tilted nose back in the old 4-3. Yeah, Mean Joe and George Perilous was a defensive line coach, and him and Chuck Nolan, but Bud Carson basically put this thing together to put Joe Green tilted into that A-gap to really make him more explosive and to really create penetration in the backfield. So this is a long-standing thing this team did back in the 70s, and obviously they were running a 4-3 defense back then, but the roots of that are grounded in Pittsburgh Steelers history. So it's not something they do all the time, but it is a good changeup to create more penetration, more chaos, and make life a little bit tougher on that center.
When's the last time that I can't remember, not since we've started getting access to all 22 and stuff like that, where just up and down the defensive line, game in, game out, we're seeing the kind of the play, and not only defensive line, but the edge, the outside linebackers as well too. I can't remember the last time having a front this good.
It was probably the old Kiesel, Smith, Hampton, Farrier, Foote.
But even that was mostly a two gap where, you're not seeing, at least on a TV film, you're not seeing a lot of that push pull, a lot of that more maintaining the gap and letting the linebackers run and make the plays on that. It was a different kind of dominance.
Right. Yeah. In terms of this kind of dominance in this specific way, stylistically, we really haven't probably since, I don't know, maybe that Steel Curtain front, or maybe Kerry Dunn was a pretty penetrating nose tackle of sorts, I think. But in terms of stylistically, this is pretty rare territory.
This is, you can't wait to get into the tape.
I know. It's my favorite thing to watch.
You really can't wait to get in there and see what's all that's going on. And the fact, too, and I pointed this out, I think, after the first podcast we did after the Cleveland game, Alex, when you can see some of that stuff with the defensive tackles on TV tape,
right.
Then you're thinking, oh Lord, what are we going to get to see? What kind of Easter eggs are we going to find, from the end zone views or whatnot? So, man, they could take anything away from me at this point, but they can't take away that all 22 at this point. I'd be more willing to give up Twitter than that.
Is that your Braveheart speech?
Yeah. Right. I've never seen that movie.
You've never seen that? Me neither.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
No, I just know the reference of they can take away our lives, but they can't take away our freedoms. Screen.
I'm not a huge Mel Gibson fan. Are you?
I think a lot of people in recent years are not Mel Gibson fans.
Okay. All right. I just, all those, what was the action movie trilogy or whatnot he was in?
He was in an action movie trilogy?
With Danny Glover.
I have no idea.
Yeah, you do.
I do?
Yeah,
Mel Gibson action movie?
Yeah, Mel Gibson.
You're asking the worst person ever on movie stuff. You should.
I should know this because I've seen all these in the movies.
Lethal Weapon?
Lethal Weapon. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Lethal Weapon.
Never seen Lethal Weapon.
You never have? Yeah. I mean, it's okay. I'm trying to look through real quick through some of his filmography list here, and really, Lethal Weapon.
No, 80s.
Mad Max was okay, obviously way back when. I take it you never saw the original kind of Mad Max
no, nor the recent one. None of the Mad Max. The 80s movies for me, it's Die Hard. I know that was the golden age of action movies.
It's not a Christmas movie either.
It is a Christmas movie, and I will watch it at Christmas. It is.
All right, let's get back to stuff that matters here. Walrus Warrior writes in, listener question. Dave and Alex, hey guys, I've been trying to become more of a student of the game, as Dave has said. Can you guys point me to any resources either on YouTube or on websites or anything of the like for me to expand my knowledge of the X's and O's of football? I'm especially interested in defenses, cover 2, cover 3, etc., and how offense stack different defenses. Thanks as always for your information, as always enlightening. There's some old series stuff I think Matt Bowen did I think it was Matt Bowen, some stuff you can find on old Bleacher Report stuff, I think, of some breaking down of coverages. That is pretty good starting point when it comes to that. And it's one of the rare times I'll send you the Bleacher Report, by the way. That aspect, I think there's maybe some old stuff, maybe also on National Football Post or National.
Also by Matt Bowen.
Also by Matt Bowen, which is good kind of base defensive coverage stuff there. Other than that, man, just poke around on YouTube. There's some, I don't know what's a good starter book to start with defensive scheme. Alex, you got any?
I always go, Tim Layden's Blood, Sweat, and Chalk. It's not super duper X's and O's in terms of like a Chris Brown type thing, but it gives a really good overview and history of things like Bud Carson's Cover 2 and Dick LeBeau's Fire Zone and the 46 defense of the Bears ran with Doug Plank and stuff like that. So that's a good just ease way into it. But in terms of the X's and O's and real coaches tape, Chris Brown stuff, Matt Bowen stuff, Coach's Choice on YouTube. You can find old videos or a little dated, but some good information there. So, there's a ton of resources out there if you want to pay for stuff. X's and O's Labs have some really good information, always updated there. It's easy to find. There's a lot out there, but it's easy to find.
You know what? Go to the Philadelphia Eagles website. Watch anything that Greg Cosell does. Anything. Anything. And I hate to send people off to PhiladelphiaEagles.com, but man, they do a great job. They do a great job on film breakdowns there. And look, you want another simple way to start getting on top of this? Record NFL, what they call it, what's it, matchup, NFL matchup now with Matt Bowen, Greg Cosell, and Sal Palantonio. Record. That should be the first thing that you record every week. If you can find any old copies of that stuff out there, even if you have to pay for it, do it. That's broken down very, very easily for the that show. That should be the most watched show on television, period. It should be 2 hours long. All right. It should be 3 hours long, but it should be at a minimum 2 hours long there. That's a great place to start on that. And really, as the old saying goes, it's going to sound cliche. Just watch as much all 20. The more all 22 that you watch, the better that you get. Like I used to learn right out of the chute about blogging and all. The more you write, the better you get. The more you write, the better you get. Now, I still got a lot more writing to do to get better. But I have come a long way, I feel, as a writer because the more I write. It goes the same way with tape and breaking down tape. The best way to get better is just to watch more tape.
And write stuff down. I have notebooks. I have a notebook sitting in front of me right now. You have to write stuff down. You will not remember anything if you try to just memorize it or just watch it casually. Unless you're writing stuff down, it helps build more memory if you're actually physically putting pen to paper. Even better than typing it. Write stuff down, draw pictures. That's what I did, and that's the key to remembering things. And by the way, here, a bit of breaking news. The Bengals traded defensive end Carlos Dunlap to the Seahawks. So Dunlap wanted out, and he gets his wish.
Yeah, color me shocked there. This one just came in from Solo 5100 on the Twitter machine here. I mean, on the email machine. Hey guys, I was looking for a Steelers podcast to listen to a couple years ago. Came across you guys. Love the show. First time emailer. Just want to know what your thoughts are about the Cam Sutton trade rumors after Instagram post that he made, being that it's such an intricate part of this defense and is playing good ball. Is a trade really that possible? For such an important part of our defense. Solo, if you got to this part and you listened to the first part, I believe you already have our thoughts on that.
Yeah, much ado about nothing.
Devon Murphy writes in, after hearing how much you guys use NFL Game Pass and the All-22, I broke down and bought it after going through most of the game against the Titans. I noticed that Pouncey struggled in pass protection and run blocking, specifically against number 90, Daquan Jones. Good eye, Devin. He seemed to be very easily pushed toward Ben, forcing quick decisions from him on goal line and run plays. He seemed to be manhandled. Help a novice out and tell me why Pouncey looked like a below-average center in my first view of an All-22 game. Well, good eye first and foremost, because I think we talked about that a little bit earlier there.
Yeah, that is a good eye. I got to give credit to Tennessee. They got a good defensive line. Jeffrey Simmons is a really good player. He's the one who batted that ball to let the Ben's second interception. He struggled with strength some more. He's always struggled with more power and bigger rushers than smaller, quicker ones over his history. So I don't have a great answer for you. I thought some of his technique was off. I thought he wasn't staying square to his blocks, but it was not his best performance.
Could that foot have anything to do with it?
That's a good point. Yeah, potentially. I mean, I'm sure it's still bugging him. He's playing through it, but he's probably never going to get healthy this season with that foot. So that may be an issue.
Yeah, it wasn't. Look, it stuck out that he was not the best offensive lineman in that game. I'll tell you that. Brett Nile writes in, "Hey, David Alex, wanted a couple comparisons that I think I know the answer to, but wanted some independent confirmation. Who has had the better performance through the first 6 games at right tackle, Okorafor or Philo last year?"
Both have been good. And both are kind of in similar situations.
6 games last year, kind of unique, kind of hard.
I would say Filer. Filer's end of the year was not great. The whole offensive line the whole offense just in general was a mess. I would say Filer, but Okorafor has played very well.
The thing is, we're not talking about Okorafor on a week in and week out basis. So that in and of itself is a positive, I think. Hard to kind of compare the first 6 games to this 6 games. I think they're having to give him less help over there.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's been treated just like a normal right tackle, just in the way that a Marcus Gilbert was treated.
Who has had the better performance in relief spot starts, Finney or Dotson?
Dotson.
Yeah, Dotson's been fairly impressive, especially really in pass protection as well too. There with him, so I would definitely go. I'm trying to look and see if there's any more breaking news here. I thought there was, but there's not.
Bengals are apparently getting a player and a pick from Seattle. Don't know the terms yet.
All right, let me find my spot here. Best first 6 games of their career, Claypool or Juju?
What did Juju? I'm trying to think back to Juju's first 6 games.
Was Juju's kind of that Week 8 game against Detroit was kind of more of his coming out game, wasn't it? Or did he?
Yeah.
Before that though, didn't he have the big catch against Denver? Was his first long touchdown against Denver, or was it against? No, that would have been later in the season, so it would have been the Detroit game first. It feels like Juju had a good a good start to the season, but I don't think they're both good starts. But I think the most notable one, and I think it's touchdown related, is Claypool.
Yeah, I'm looking at the first 6 weeks on Juju. He had 15 catches, 192 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What is Claypool at now? I think he's above all 3 of those numbers. And then, as you said, the Detroit game was the real breakout for him, the 97-yard touchdown. So what is Claypool's numbers? He's sitting at 18, 333, and 4. So, yeah, I think Claypool wins out there.
Best 4-game stretch, Ebron or Ladarius Green? Look, I mean, outside of that one game Ladarius had, I think it was against the Giants, was it not?
Did Ladarius even play 4 games? Yeah, that Giants game was the touchdown was the only play.
Yeah, I mean, Ebron by far. Better season so far, Ben 2020 or Ben 2016? Oh, man, I'm trying to go back to Ben 2016 in my head. I've been talking so much and thinking back to Ben 2018 so much as of late. They're 2 totally different styles really right now, because we talk about 2018 and Ben, that was 2018 was coming out of Ben dink and dunk. 2016 was more, we're starting to see Ben start getting rid of the ball a little bit quicker, right?
Yeah, I really can't compare the 2. I'm just trying to think about 2016 Ben. I can't even put it in my head right now, so I can't give you a good answer.
Yeah, we're going to have to punt, I think, on that one. Better season so far, Connor 2020 or Connor 2018? Ask me in 2 more games.
Yeah, that's fair. I think they're very comparable. I think you could argue this year, but I think Connor did more as a receiver in 2018 as of right now. So maybe I'll give the slight edge to 2018 Connor.
The thing too is Connor wasn't having a bad 2019. Until he hit that Miami game, right? I mean, it wasn't awful.
Right.
2018, 2020. Yeah, that's another guy. Come at me in another couple weeks on that after this Ravens game. We're going to learn a lot about both these teams. Better season so far, Watt and Dupree 2020 or Watt and Dupree 2019?
this year, if you can believe it. Like, both are elite, but this year they just find ways to raise their game even more.
Adam Ilfelder writes in, love the show, what you do for us Steeler fans. 2 topics. Would love your opinion on the positive impact that hit by Spillane or on Henry had on the whole team. Tomlin made the point before the game about how some players make business decisions versus Henry and the negative spillover that can have on a team. Hearing his teammates talk so glowingly about Spillane this week has made me even more excited about this team having a special feel to it. Look, I pumped. I was probably one of the bigger cheerleaders, I think, maybe about Spillane getting an opportunity to show what he has this past week. But I got to be honest with you, Alex. I think way too much is being made about that hit.
And why is that?
I just think it was a good hit. Okay, you filled the hole. You did your job. You worked downhill. A crushing hit on a big time physical running back. Okay, it happened. They scored after it. I think maybe okay. It was okay. It's great to post it on Twitter. Let's move on from the hit.
Yeah, but I just think it spoke to just a young guy, first start, making that big play in such a huge moment at the time because you didn't know if they were going to score after. It just speaks to the mentality that this guy has, is that kind of next man up thing, and I really appreciate and respect that, and I think his teammates do too.
Sure, I did too, but okay. Next.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Turn the page, new week, and Baltimore's going to be a big challenge. And if Spillane gets burnt this week, then everyone's going to say he sucks and go trade for Jared Davis. So I understand your point.
Nobody's going to remember that hit.
Yeah, you're right.
Now, obviously, if they go all, if he continues to play well, yada yada, deep playoff run, Super Bowl, yada yada, we're going to be talking about. Oh man, was that the turning point? Number 2, going back over the game, I feel like people are underselling how good an effort this was by the Steelers. Would you agree? The Titans are a really good, resourceful team, and the Steelers went into their home field and got a solid win with a score that was much closer than the underlying play would indicate. Maybe that's good, since it will keep the quote-unquote experts from hopping on the bandwagon this week ahead of the Ravens game. Look, I don't know how you want to dice this thing up into 2 halves, a tale of 2 halves, what have you. But the 3 turnovers is hard. It's hard to win with 3 turnovers. The fact that they won with 3 turnovers, I think, is maybe the biggest storyline in that game.
Yeah, because it's just so rare that it happens for Pittsburgh and for the league as a collective. And so the ability just to hang on, I know it wasn't pretty. There were certainly some criticisms in the second half, but the first half, you're just taking it to an undefeated, good Tennessee Titans team, and just few teams can dominate like that, and that's really impressive despite the second half kind of flukiness that allowed the Titans to climb back into that one.
All right, Daniel Wilson writes in, hello, Dave and Alex. Danny from Youngstown, Ohio here. Just want to say I love the show. Look forward to hearing all 3 episodes a week and the end of live stream. I drive all day for work, so the longer the episodes, the happier I am. I love how in-depth you guys get at breaking down the Steelers and their opponents. One thing is I recently heard that Terrell Edmonds' nickname is Old School, but I really wish he would wear receivers gloves instead of taping his fingers, and maybe he would have gotten a pick on Sunday against the Titans. Hopefully he can get one soon, since teams are avoiding Minka. Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was kind of that was probably one of the better chances he's going to have at an interception there.
Yeah, but he's making plays in coverage, and that's a good point. I didn't even realize that he wasn't wearing gloves and he was just taping up his fingers. But the dude's improving. The dude's making plays in coverage. And I think it's old-fashioned is his nickname, which is a nice little touch.
Right, old-fashioned. Sometimes I think these players worry about too much about what they look like as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I think they do things too much for show and not things about practicality sometimes. It's just a quick observation. Zach Jorgensen writes in, hey, David Alex, my observation is that teams are adjusting to Ben getting rid of the ball so quickly by having pass rushers and defensive linemen focus on getting hands into the passing lanes and tipping passes. Yeah, I think that's possible, Zach. This has been talked about, but my question is, what can the Steelers do schematically or strategically to combat this? Can O-line do anything? Can Ben do anything? Can receivers do anything? You guys are the best in the business, period, with no however comma necessary. Take care. Zach, who lives in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things you can try to do. I mean, obviously, if a defensive lineman wants to jump, that offensive lineman has to punish him and put him in the ground. But when the ball comes out quick and when defenses know it, I mean, it's going to happen sometimes. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do if you want to have that kind of quick rhythm game, whether that's a pump fake, maybe go deep a little bit more, change the depth and the target of where you want that ball to be thrown. I don't know. It's hard to get a read. Sometimes with defensive linemen, they're smart. They know the ball comes out quick and they're going to react accordingly.
All right, one last one from Sebastian Poupe, Poupe. I almost wanted to say I wanted to say that the wrong way. Sebastian Poupe. Hello, Uncle Dave and Alex. A long-time listener, first-time emailer. All right, another first-time emailer. We're getting a lot of those lately. We love the first-time. We love first-timers. Long-time listener, first-time emailer. I've been a Steelers fan since the early 90s, being from Ghent, Belgium. I think that's how you pronounce it. Ghent. Is that Ghent, Alex?
I'm going to pass on that one. Not in that field. Belgium.
In Belgium, there you go. That's easy out. That's the Dave out from Belgium. I still am not familiar with all the ins and outs of football. My question is, with the Ravens being a running team, should we maybe bring Edmonds into the front to spy Jackson? I think he has the speed to mirror him, especially if we are playing man on the outsides. That being said, I think we probably see a good amount of zone defense to keep eyes on Jackson, and he seems to be confused by zone if it is disguised correctly. Thank you for answering if you get to it.
Well, I think those are very excellent questions and observations for somebody who says they don't know a lot about football. I think you do, my dude. Yeah, I mean, for Edmonds being the spy, if you're usually you're going to be spying in passing situations, so like 3rd and 6+, and that the threat of the run really isn't there as much, even with a Baltimore team that's pretty run heavy. So I don't know if necessarily do the spy because of that. Just to be clear, though, it's hard. You can't just have a spy and just assume that that's going to solve the problem and just wipe your hands clean and say, okay, he's spied, he's contained. Like, if that was the answer, Lamar would have been solved a long time ago. This guy makes everybody miss one-on-one in the open field. So it's more about the spy. It's more about rush lane integrity. Do you rush less aggressively? Do you kind of do this muddled rush where you're just trying to focus on contain, not getting after him? The way you blitz things, you have to be conscious of that and how many you drop and how many you send. So there's a lot of elements that go into play about trying to stop Lamar with his feet. And so it's beyond just spy him. But to the point, yeah, I think you do play more zone, because if you play man, your back is turned, this dude's making plays, and you're going to be late to react. So I do think that it's going to be a more zone coverage heavy kind of game.
I lied to you. I want to get one more in because people take time to email. We try to get through as many as we can. I know we're running along here. Hi, guys. This one's from Steve Novakovic. Hi, guys. Love the show as always. My last question was probably too complicated for airing. Here goes. Choose any you like. How are we to understand the reason for the Steelers' improvement on special teams? The talent level seems similar. Ball's on track, punting a bit weak, and coverage units don't seem unusually gifted, but the results are much better than recent seasons. Is it Danny Smith that is making this unit gel? That's number one. Answer that real quick, Alex.
Oh, you're going to give me a Danny Smith question and tell me to answer that quickly?
Sure.
No, I mean, he's doing a good job, but there are different personnel guys. McLeod's doing a good job. I'll have to dive into specifically what the reasons are, but the blocking overall just seems a whole lot better, and so I'm not sure if there was a schematic change or what, but it's been a big difference on the blocking side of things.
I like Dave's philosophy with Ray McLeod. Catch ball,
run fast.
Run fast straight.
He had to make a cut, though. You got to make a cut.
He did. And that was a great sidestep that he had. Does Switzer do that?
No, he does not. Also, guess who's coming to Cincinnati?
Who?
BJ Finney getting traded from Seattle. He had not played a snap for them. He did not work out at all. So Carlos Dunlap going to Seattle, BJ Finney, and a pick coming to the Bengals.
Why do you reckon?
Why is Finney going to the Bengals?
Right.
Because their line's a mess, and Finney had not worked out. He had lost a job. He had not played a snap this season, and it just had not worked out there. So very interesting.
Wow.
BJ Finney back in the north.
Huh. Didn't see that one coming there. All right, let me pick one more out from what Steve had here. let's see, in what week this year do the 72 Dolphins pop the cork? Not to be a homer, but after this week, I don't see many scary games on the schedule. Even the Thanksgiving game versus Baltimore is in prime time and in Pittsburgh. Oh, I getting way ahead of yourself there. Let's see what happens in week 8 here against the Ravens there. Obviously, if the Steelers get by this week with a win, schedule sure does set up nice until they face Baltimore again.
It does, but man, 3 straight games on the road. Baltimore game's going to be tough, but let's just hope that they have to wait at least another week to pop the champagne. Let's get the win over the Ravens, get the 7-0, and then you're in the driver's seat, regardless of if and when that first loss comes.
All right, with that, it's a great place to stop there. It's already 12:30 Eastern time. Wednesdays get away from us so quickly, it seems like. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at where are we? Gmail.com. Where are we? The Terrible Podcast at gmail.com. If you like what we're doing, you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com and make your donation that way by hitting the donate button upright navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of Steelers Depot, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button upright navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. A lot of people taking us up on that way. And look, it's the best of both worlds. You donate money that way, you get an ad-free version of the site. It's a win-win situation all the way around there. Shout out to every listeners and site surfers, if you will. Been absolutely some fantastic weeks, not only for the podcast, but Steelers Depot as well too. So we would like to thank everybody for the support you've been giving us that way as well. Until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.